We have not received or talked about our giving yet today, and we've done that on purpose because there's some things that we want to talk to our church about. And it feels like we are having to do that a little bit right now. I'm hoping we will get beyond this, but these things matter, and we want to take time to talk about things that have an impact on all of us. Have an impact on our church, have an impact on our trust, have an impact on something that we hold dear and believe in, our church, and our mission and what God has called us to in building His church and in honoring Him in that process. And so before I speak, I've asked the chairman of our board, Stephen Crouch, to come up and speak to us for a few moments. So can we stand and give him a welcome as he comes to speak to us?
You may be seated. Thank you for being here today, and good morning to you. Good morning to those joining us from around Australia in all of our campus locations. I hope what I'm about to share will be informative and will help us go through this season a little more graciously and generously. So I'm just going to read, if I can, and get things right. I love this church. I've been in this church for so long at P's, and I just love you. I love you for being here. And in times like this, I get reminded of the Ukrainian church when I talk to Yura, and I feel like when the fight gets tough, the tough get going. But let's just talk. So I'm standing before you today after what has been another difficult week. In the years ahead, we might look back on this week as Charles Dickens puts it. It was the best of times and it was the worst of times. It was this season of light and it was this season of darkness. As I've previously made you aware, in August last year, a claim in the federal court, including allegations about some of Hillsong's financial transactions, was made. In Australia, employees have the right to test certain claims about employment matters in the federal courts. We believe those claims are incorrect and the church has a right to defend those claims. In our legal defence, we have explained to the court that this employee privately downloaded thousands and thousands of documents from Hillsong without consent. The documents, if published, may violate privacy principles in Australia, and we're taking advice to see how we will now have to act to meet all of our privacy obligations. The board wasn't satisfied in August last year just to respond to the employment claim. It immediately commenced a process of engaging a forensic accounting firm, Grant Thornton, to investigate the claims made by the employee. We ensured that the scope of the work that they completed was broad enough so that they could have unlimited access to all transactions covered by the allegations. As part of the court process, the court ordered Hillsong and the employee to try and resolve the claims through mediation. Hillsong entered the mediation in good faith, and until last week, our view was the mediation was in its final stages. It's important that during the mediation process, all parties to keep the mediation and associated documents confidential. As soon as our mediation obligations are over, we will provide you with an update, and we will detail the findings of the forensic report from Grant Thornton. This week, perhaps not coincidentally, Andrew Wilkie, a member of the Australian Parliament, used parliamentary privilege to make public thousands of Hillsong documents. This would have been undertaken knowing that Hillsong has no real opportunity of reply, a right which would be afforded to any other member in the Parliament, and it denied Hillsong procedural justice. Mr. Wilkie did not contact our church to inform us that he was in possession of the documents, nor did he attempt to clarify any of the information in the documents that he had in his possession, which he chose then to make public. Parliamentary privilege protects those who participate in the proceedings of Parliament from outside interference or lawsuit, meaning that the freedom of speech in debates or proceedings in Parliament cannot be questioned in any court or any place out of Parliament. What is disappointing is that we were unable to ask that he not produce documents that may have information about individual people. And we were denied an opportunity to provide any clarity or context for information that had been made public. As I previously outlined last year, the ACNC commenced an investigation into Hillsong within 1 week of Pastor Brian's resignation in March 2022. This investigation is still underway, and we are fully cooperating with the ACNC. As a church, we will make changes as we work through with regulators on areas that need adjustment. We will reshape how we do things financially going forward. Some of these disclosures have been confusing and hurtful to you. Some of the conversations and questions friends and family are asking are really difficult and upsetting. I understand some people will assume the worst. For this, I, together with our board, wish to express how deeply sorry we are for any distress this is causing you. As a board, we are choosing to believe that these challenges are a way for us to create a new platform and for making any required changes we need to make. While it's difficult not to feel like this is just another attack on our church, we are determined to ensure that good will come out of this and improve areas that will only take us forward. Jeremiah 33 expresses this hope for our future. But now, take another look. I'm going to give this city a thorough renovation, working a true healing inside and out. I'm going to show them life whole, life brimming with blessings. I'll restore everything that is lost to Judah and Jerusalem. I'll build everything back as good as new. I'll scrub them clean from the dirt they've done against me. I'll forgive everything that they've done wrong. Forgive all their rebellions. And Jerusalem will be a centre of joy and praise and glory for all the countries on earth. They'll get reports on all the good that I'm doing for her. They'll be in awe of the blessings I am pouring out on her. 1 month ago, I had the honour of standing before you to announce Pastor Phil and Lucinda's as our new global senior pastors. This year, our church has seen tremendous momentum build. We've seen green shoots of growth all over Australia, and across the globe. I've come to believe with all my heart that God loves his church, and the progress of his kingdom is unstoppable. This week, when we met as an Australian board, we all stood with Pastors Phil and Lucinda. We laid hands on them, and we believe that God will give them the strength and the courage to work through the present and guide us towards the promise. During recent days, as we have talked and met together to consider how we can transparently, compassionately, and wisely lead our church through this difficult season, I have seen firsthand the heart of our leaders, Pastors Phil and Lucinda. Phil and Lucinda are without doubt committed to honest and transparent, servant-hearted leadership and building a healthy church, changing lives through Christ. So I want to just ask Phil to come back and lead us forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. And I am now going to share a few things, but I really just want to say that Lucinda and I are so appreciative of our board and Stephen and the entire board for their support and encouragement and just help in this season, because no one can do any of this on our own. We all need each other, and we need wise counsel, and we need people who look at things in an appropriate manner and trust to go, God, give us wisdom to get things right. And so I would just like to again just really acknowledge Stephen, our chairman, and the entire board. So it is going to be a different kind of message today, guys. And my hope is that we will resume normal church services as soon as we can, because it does feel a little bit like, and I'm sure for some of you, you're like, man, we just want to come to church. And we're getting a bit tired of all of this, and I completely understand that. But I do want to thank everyone again for being here today, all our campus pastors who do such an incredible job at all our locations, all our beautiful congregations around Australia, around the world. We love you guys. Can we just thank all our campus pastors who are carrying this with us? Again, it's not just Lucinda and I. There are people leading at local levels all around Australia and around the world, and we want to honour you today. I want to start by reading the words of Jesus in John 16:33 in the New Living Translation. It said, I have told you all this so that you may have peace in me. That's where we find our peace. Here on earth, you will have trials and sorrows. There's parts of the Bible I just wish weren't there. But take heart, because I have overcome the world. And this is a truth for us, particularly in times like this, to be reminded of. If anyone recalls, this time in March last year was a tough week and a tough time. I had to get up and stand before you regarding other difficult and painful things. And here we are again in March, dealing with some very serious and confronting allegations. I am planning to skip March next year and head straight to April. This week, as Stephen mentioned, Andrew Wilkie used parliamentary privilege to table thousands of documents that he'd received about Hillsong Church, our church, your church and my church. A church that many of us have been part of for many years. For some it's been decades. We're faithful, serving, giving, contributing, worshiping Jesus, studying his word, growing together in our faith journey. We've been, I believe, a generous-hearted church, a church with a vision to reach and impact the world with the good news, the gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ. But this week in particular, it's felt like we're a part of something really wrong, something that involves all kinds of sinister activity. It's all about self-enrichment, that we're some of the most terrible people in society, that we add no value and we don't care about anyone but ourselves. It's horrible. It's far from the way Jesus intended us to live as his followers on earth, and it's not who we desire to be. I want to start by saying I'm sorry. I'm sorry that as your pastor, you have to go through this, and your kids have to go through this. That simply because of the church you've chosen to be part of, some of you have been ridiculed, abused, maybe even vilified. And I'm sorry you felt betrayed by information you've read in the media this week. And I know that there are many questions that are swirling around in our minds based on information released. I also want to say that the allegations are very concerning, and as Stephen Crouch has mentioned, a full forensic investigation has already been conducted by Grant Thornton. There are thousands of documents that contain information that I had no knowledge personally about, but I'll take full responsibility for how we do things going forward. I ask you, our church, to have patience with what we are facing here. We are committed to proper process, doing what's required carefully and in a considered way to ensure we deal with this appropriately. I also want to say our finance team is made up of great people who have endeavored to do things with the utmost care and integrity within the bounds of the law and to work with all regulatory bodies as required. They want to get things right. We all do. Our church has grown, as you know, from a single corner church to a global community of churches. And even though we've grown to many churches around the world, we've been learning that growth doesn't always equal health. Our vision, as I've shared many times now, is a healthy church changing lives through Christ. Our focus is health, not growth, because we know that over time, healthy things grow. I've also mentioned about how it feels like we drifted to become focused more on events, to become event-driven, and we're now reshaping our structure around our mission. Our full focus is to be a mission-driven church. Our mission broken down into 3 categories: healthy church communities, purpose-filled Jesus followers, significant and sustainable social impact. Everything we do going forward will be focused on achieving our mission together. This means change. It means doing things differently. This means acknowledging our mistakes and finding ways to do better. Regarding some of the allegations you may know of, I will not, let me say that again. Regarding some of the allegations, you, the congregation, know as much as I do. That's the reality. But we will do whatever's necessary to investigate these, as Stephen's already mentioned. We're not able to go into some details today because there's still a lot before the courts, but I'm going to speak about certain allegations regarding me personally. In any organisation, the way financial decisions are made is based on a certain structure and culture. Our structure and culture is changing and needs to change to ensure we are held to a high level of accountability, and I welcome that. We're already implementing systems to ensure that if there are any excesses established, they cannot be incurred going forward. I can't change the past, but I can play a significant role in changing the future. We've established a clear vision and mission, and that is our focus. And we need to ensure that our financial systems, processes, and structure line up with our mission. As we shared on our Vision/Mission Sunday a few weeks ago, we are stepping into a new era as a church. We're grateful for so many things about our past, but change is needed and necessary, and we're in the midst of that right now. I'm deeply disappointed that Mr. Wilkie would choose to use parliamentary privilege so that he does not have to be held accountable for whatever he tabled. Parliamentary privilege is literally a privilege conferred by the Constitution that has on many occasions been exercised responsibly and resulted in iniquities being addressed without the interference of defamation laws. It's particularly un-Australian to exercise it in this way, particularly when there was no obstacle to Mr. Wilkie contacting the church for an explanation. Clearly, he doesn't appear to be interested in the answer, and it kind of feels like being king hit from behind. But Jesus loves you, Mr. Wilkie. And we believe Jesus loves all Australians, regardless of their culture, their background, their sexuality. You're all loved by Jesus. And Mr. Wilkie, you're still welcome to attend any of our services, where no doubt you'll be greeted with a smile and a warm welcome. In fact, we have a location in Hobart just down the road from you. Church, I want to take a moment to share with you some of what we are currently doing to manage our finances differently. We are making significant operational changes. Last year, we underwent a process of voluntary resignations due to the fact that we were overstaffed. Our staffing was a result of a previous culture and focus. 47% of our staff were administrative or event-focused. This could be considered back-end staffing, not front or people-facing. This needed to change. We want the vast majority of our staff to be front-facing, focused on people, and the needed and necessary work of face-to-face ministry. We desire to put more resource into caring for people in the communities we serve. 153 staff chose to take our voluntary resignation package. These were good people and worked hard for our church, and I want to take a moment to honour them today. With this staff reduction, what it has meant is that we're able to save over $9.47 million this year and every year going forwards. This is a huge saving, and it means we can focus our finances where they really need to be, ministering to and caring for people. Our percentage of back-end administrative staff or non-church roles has reduced from 47% now to 37%, and our goal is to get it to 30%. And that's a radical change. Our goal is greater operational efficiency lining up with the outworking of our mission. We're continuing to reshape our future to focus more of our effort, energy, and resource at a local campus level. If we've been doing things in an excessive manner or that are out of alignment with our mission, these things will stop. This does not mean shutting down important activities, and I want to say clearly, we are still committed to excellence in all we do. But our goal is to do more with less, to be wise stewards of all that is entrusted to us financially. Right now, we're getting clarity on our new structure. And let me give you a simple picture of how our structure will look. There's an image that's coming up on the screen. And it's just a simple image here that we're really breaking things down into three categories, as we've talked about with our mission. Campus support, which is healthy church communities. Discipleship support, which is about purpose-filled Jesus followers. And then social impact support. And then one area which is operational and strategy support, that is working towards the goal of those three missions to see them achieved. And there's an overlap there because there are ways that everyone works together in different scenarios and situations to get this to work. Our finance team, all the different areas of our church working together to achieve this mission. Our goal is to put more resource and responsibility in the hands of our local campus pastors and their local ministry teams. I stated a couple of weeks ago, we're committed to turning the pyramid upside down. We believe our role is to serve our church, and that's what we're committed to. And so is everyone who serves in some form of administrative capacity, is to serve the vision, to serve those who are working with people. I want to talk about allegations raised about my personal finances and the way things operate in this role that I now find myself in. Firstly, I just want to remind everyone that we've been in transition over the last 12 years. That's 12 years. It feels like 12 years. It's been 12 months. It's been a year of significant change for me and my family. We were leading our church in South Africa when we received a call asking us to help look after our church globally at the end of 2021, with a focus on Australia. And guys, what a wild ride it's been. Sometimes I've called it the haunted house ride. I literally just don't know what's around the next corner. In order to fulfill the requirements of this role while also endeavouring to maintain a healthy marriage and family, Lucinda and I and our board had some clear guidelines. The first one was, I don't travel alone. It's just not a healthy way to do things. Secondly, my travel schedule, thank you for a few people clapping. My wife would be clapping at that one. My travel schedule is approved by members of our board. If I travel internationally, I travel business class simply because I'm going somewhere to work and I have limited time. My ministry leave to preach at other churches is approved by our chairman. Last year, Lucinda and I did travel regularly to South Africa because we were endeavouring to manage both the responsibilities of this role and the needs of our family and our church in South Africa. And there were extra travel costs associated with that. We've now consolidated our family in Sydney, and so that level of travel between here and South Africa has reduced. Last year, I only spoke in one church other than a Hillsong church. That was in Guatemala. And over 60% of that flight was covered by the church in Guatemala. I've also paid a portion of that flight myself to cover costs of my daughter flying with me. The rest was covered by our global church budget as I went to do ministry in both our church in Sao Paulo and Buenos Aires. In fact, that trip involved 9 different flights, and not all of them were business class. I spoke and engaged in ministry work every day except one. And anyone who has done any kind of travel knows that this is tough on your body and it's unsustainable. But I also want to say we are committed to managing our travel requirements effectively with flight times and associated costs, and seeing where we can adjust so that we pay less. The harsh reality is that post-COVID world travel costs have been really high. Secondly, I did ask that on some of these trips, my traveling companion would be my daughter. Our family was separated for much of last year, and this was an opportunity for us to be together. I do not take that lightly, and it is not always the case, and not always going to be the case going forward. Other times, other members of our team have travelled with me, and they will continue to. Why do we do this? Because the demands of this role are high, and if health is a priority, then we have to find ways to ensure we can stay healthy in order to serve our church effectively. The same travel policy of carefully considering flight costs will apply for travel to other churches when they may invite me to speak and minister. I want to ensure we do the right thing by them, as this is church money, it's not mine, and I want to ensure we are good stewards both ways. I want to quote from some of what is now on public record, courtesy of Mr. Wilkie. The current global senior pastor, Phil Dooley, was the founder and head pastor of Hillsong Church, South Africa. Despite operating in a country experiencing significant poverty and disadvantage, Dooley prescribed to a Hillsong culture focusing on spending significant amounts of money on guest speaker honorariums, green room catering, entertainment, gifts, meals, and guest relations. When we left Sydney in 2008 for South Africa, our intention was to do nothing more than to go on an adventure serving God and building church that would serve the people of South Africa and help them to know Jesus. Our kids were 3, 6, and 8. We left all we had and we simply moved to serve the people of South Africa to the best of our ability. There is no mention anywhere in the table of information that has been put in public domain of how we started church in South Africa. It actually wasn't in a building, it was a campsite with refugees from other African nations. We arrived in a country in difficult times with xenophobic attacks happening around us. Africans from other nations were being attacked, and the government, to protect them, was rounding them up in big army trucks and placing them in makeshift refugee camps. And before we'd even started Sunday services, we went to those campsites and asked if we could somehow be of assistance. And we received a resounding yes. And then we did our best to care for those people. We gave out Bibles, we did programs for the kids who were displaced and couldn't go to school. We sang songs with them, we played games, we partnered with Joyce Meyer Ministries. We gave out blankets and brought gas cookers to help with meals, and we hadn't even started Sunday services. We simply shared what we were doing via email or SMS with those who were interested in being part of our church. There actually was no social media then. It's crazy. And people came and joined us and helped and served. Our church grew in South Africa. And so we attempted some crazy things like building accommodation for physically disabled kids at Tembeletu School, and our global church got behind this project. This building is still there today. We built it and paid for it before we had any buildings of our own, and we gave it to the South African Department of Education. We covered the first 2 years of operational costs of this facility that hosts 42 physically disabled students full-time and all their carers and associated needs. And they're some of the most beautiful and special kids you'll ever meet. And we hosted Colour Conference for the women of Africa, and we found ways to include the poorest of the poor by providing free transportation and a meal at a very low cost of registration that would be equivalent to between $5 and $10 Australian dollars, and we carried the cost of that as a church. We held a Christmas spectacular each year at an arena, and again asked, how do we give access to the poorest of the poor so they can come and experience this? And it cost our church, but we did it because we were trying to make the experience of our church as accessible as possible in a country that has great disparity between rich and poor. And we believe the church can fill the gap between the two. During COVID, we partnered with other organisations and gave out 6 million meals. We've given out wheelchairs to those in need over the years. We've established a program called iHub, teaching young people digital skills so they can get jobs in a country with 60% youth unemployment. And then we did manage to buy some buildings. We bought a former nightclub, and I don't own that building. The church does. I get no personal benefit from it whatsoever, but the people of South Africa do, and they will continue to benefit from it long after I've gone. And so it is with all of these buildings that we have across Australia. They aren't owned by any one of us. They're for the benefit of the church and the community, and they will be here for generations to come. Personally, I love seeing this building that I'm in at Christmas time, covered in Christmas lights, with thousands of members of the community enjoying the spectacle with family and friends and coming along to our Christmas spectacular. And here in Australia, we've been tireless in our commitment to give back to our communities and to those in need around the world. Some of our social programs include scripture teachers in schools bringing a message of hope to Jesus. That's schools in New South Wales, and just being there to care for young people. Chaplains serving in hospitals, sports groups, aged cares, prisons, community groups who are fully committed to caring and supporting those who are struggling or facing challenges and difficulties in life. We've assisted a family from war-torn Kiev to resettle and set up home and start a new life here in Australia. We're helping support our church in Kiev, Ukraine, financially and through various aid programs as they continue to help people during this horrific conflict. Every month at our Hills campus, we support the vital work of Australian Red Cross with the Lifeblood Bus, blood donations for people who need it. We support people starting out in business through our Business Connect groups, facilitating faith, wisdom, community amongst this group of men and women. We have our Shine and our Strength programs for adolescent young women and men, developing self-esteem and resilience for vulnerable youth. And we do that all across the country. We're creating Safe Spaces, a program for young people in local communities that we're a part of, providing breakfast programs, sports competition and hangouts after school. We support and participate in the vital government agency of advocacy of Micah Australia as they advocate on behalf of countries currently experiencing famine. This year alone, the Albanese government committed $40 million in aid to the Horn of Africa, flood-ravaged Pakistan and war-torn Yemen. Our youth groups are a key focus, so that young people are engaged in positive activities and broaden their relationships with their peers and mentors. And just last month, our Hills youth pastors met with the Castle Hill Youth Liaison Police Officer for over an hour because he wanted to introduce himself and share what he does and how he can help our leaders and students. He appreciates the work Hillsong Youth does. He mentioned that when he has youth who need some love and care, he'll call us to help with mentorship. It's just trying to be a church in the local community. As a local police officer, he sees the benefit of partnership, being in local areas like where the metro stations are, to build connections with young people, as well as the high school Shine and Strength programs that we run through City Care. He really appreciates it. He offered to come down to youth on a Friday night regularly when he's on shift to continue to build connections with local young people and to impart encouragement and skills in our youth leaders regarding mental health issues. There are so many different things that we've been involved in. We're a member group of the Christians United for Afghanistan campaign, along with other Christian denominations campaigning for more Afghan refugees being given a visa to Australia. An additional 31,500 places have now been made for vulnerable Afghan people. And we can do that. You may not know this, but Hillsong Church is the first church in Australia to be recognised as a skilled workplace for mental health first aid program. We're committed to effective and sustainable mental health care for all our congregations. We provide emergency food relief. I know you know much of this, to people in our church and wider community. And we're thankful for the generosity and support of our church members. We are actively involved in practically assisting those in need with the devastating floods that happened last year across northeastern Australia. And we've partnered with World Vision in different circumstances with challenges that happened in the Philippines in recent years, and right now assisting with the devastation of what's been happening in Syria and Turkey. In fact, we've got an update from the CEO of World Vision, Daniel, and I want you just to have a look at the screen.
Hi Hillsong Church, it's Daniel from World Vision. I just want to say thank you on behalf of the survivors whose lives were upended by the earthquakes in Syria and Turkey. We are so grateful for your generosity, prayers, and the love that the Hillsong community has been sending. Hillsong, you always step up and you're doing it again. Because of you, we were able to respond within an hour of the devastation. We always know that you're there when it counts. We knew you would join in again, and you've done it. In a little over 3 weeks, you've all joined forces to raise almost $300,000. And that number keeps growing. It's you who's providing clean water, shelter, heating, food, and child protection. I've been in every big disaster in the world over the past 20 years. Wars, earthquakes, tsunamis, famines, droughts, and floods. And I've seen that the impact of this disaster will be felt for generations. Mothers and fathers have lost children, kids have lost their mums and dads and their brothers and sisters. Rebuilding schools, hospitals, and homes is one thing. That's a bricks and mortar job. But rebuilding people's lives is another. But with your generosity, we're already helping with that. And I know that thousands of children and families in Syria and Turkey are extremely thankful for your kindness. With your continued support, we will keep helping those who need it most. Know that your prayers and your care is making a real difference. Hillsong, you're doing it again, and it's no surprise to me. You're a big part of our global family. So a heartfelt thank you. God bless.
Well done, everybody. Well done. We can do that together, and we will continue to. And we do things on a really practical level as well. We have transitional housing and casework for women and their children escaping domestic violence as they seek to establish a safe life in a new community. Our pastors have been trained in a range of courses, including suicide prevention, domestic violence, and gambling support. Our multicultural ministry provides pastoral care support and facilitates access to various social supports for people from non-English speaking backgrounds. We deliver hampers to our local police stations to thank them for their vital work during high stress and high demand seasons like Easter and Christmas. And last year, 594 families who'd been doing it tough received a beautiful Christmas hamper. On top of this, many thousands of goods were given to individuals and families in our wider community through our care arm, City Care. We have supported asylum seekers and people being detained at Villawood Detention Centre for over 20 years. In fact, we have a church service happening in Villawood right now, and we want to give a big hello, we love you, and God bless you to everyone in Villawood. We've had a church service in there caring for people for years. Our pastors have made thousands of appointments and phone calls and visitations to support people and offer pastoral care. We have pastors rostered on after hours 7 days a week. Thousands of adults have been educated in both our full-time and evening college. Courses such as English as a second language and other skills-based courses are offered. And over the years, our conferences have attracted thousands of visitors, many coming to Australia for the first time. And that's added significant economic benefit to our country. Plus, we support the work of A21, preventing human trafficking, Vision Rescue, as you know, providing food and education to vulnerable children in India. We support compassion, child sponsorships, and the work that we're doing in the Hillsong Africa Foundation. There's so many things that we're a part of. And we're committed to preventing the crime of modern-day slavery. We're a founding member of the Australian Freedom Network in 2016 when it began, which supported the introduction and implementation of a modern slavery act for Australia. Plus, there's all the incredible work that our global churches are doing, amazing initiatives to help and assist where they are. The cynicism of the information supplied by Mr. Wilkie suggests that I moved to South Africa for some form of self-enrichment, and that it is the motivation of any or all of our pastors and staff, and that's pretty hard to take. My family and I are grateful Australians, grateful for all this country offers, and also aware of the responsibility we have in this country with so much to make a difference in countries where they have big need, and will always choose to be generous in that regard. Information also states that I was part of a celebrity preacher's reciprocal honorarium rort. It's not easy to say. And then mentions that I received honorariums. This is fully declared income, and the small sums we've received by way of honorarium are declared as is required by law, and I would be very happy to share that information with Mr. Wilkie. I've never asked for an honorarium and never expected an honorarium for speaking. And I want to say to our congregation here in Australia, look at how your pastors live. Does it look lavish? Or does it look like they are good, honest, hardworking people doing their best as ministers of the gospel of Jesus to serve their communities and congregants while also raising their own families? I also want to be clear that in my role, I have no intention of being on the circuit, of being invited and traveling to speak at conferences so I can gain personally from this. In fact, we have a policy that holds Lucinda and I accountable for all our travel and ministry, and we are happy with that because it protects us and looks after our well-being. Our focus is our church, not the circuit. And in line with this, in October, we updated our gifts policy and our honorariums policy. And Lucinda and I, stepping into this role full-time from February this year, any honorariums we receive go back to church. We're scrutinizing every expense to ensure that it is going to effective mission-focused ministry endeavors. I'm also announcing today that on top of the forensic audit that has been conducted by Grant Thornton regarding the allegations, we will be beginning this week a complete reevaluation via an outside third party of our financial structure and systems to ensure they line up with the mission going forward. The question we're asking, I mentioned it already, is how do we do better with less? We take our financial stewardship seriously. In tough economic seasons, we know it's a sacrifice to give. We honor the sacrificial giving of you, the faithful members of our church, and we meet it with a new level of diligence while continuing to be generous to those who are in need. There is a cost to all of this, a personal cost to those who continue to show up as part of Hillsong Church. It's a cost to your mental health and to that of your kids. And I ask the media to consider the way they present things and do so with respect, recognizing they have a significant duty of care. Hillsong has been bashed in public media for years now. Maybe some of it's warranted, but a lot of it is unfair, unwarranted, and completely untrue. Recently, we were even accused of having a rape culture. That's pretty horrible to say. As a senior pastor of Hillsong, I want all women to feel safe in our church, and we strongly advocate against, violence against women and children. We advocate for you. I have 2 daughters, and of course, I would not want them to be part of a place with this kind of culture. It's simply not who we are. Our Hillsong College has had over 14,000 students attend since its years of existence. And I was right there at the beginning, Power Ministry School. Shout out to the alumni. And the huge majority of them have loved the experience. And many are serving God in ministry roles all over the world today. A small number have on occasion made complaints, as happens in any institution. And when this has happened, we have listened and sought to understand, even using outside investigators, seeking their recommendations and making necessary changes to ensure the health and well-being of all the students who attend. There's a personal toll for the constant criticism and undermining of pretty much anything we as a church attempt to do. And yet our local police know that we work with them regularly on matters regarding the care and welfare of people in our community, as I've already mentioned. There are many community programs and initiatives we engage in that never get mentioned by the media and probably never will. And I want to say to the young people of our church, we understand you're in a pretty vulnerable season, and for some of you it has been awful what you've experienced, being bullied for your faith and attendance at Hillsong Church, and we're truly sorry for this. And here is just one story from one of our pastors who is also a parent in our church. My son was with a group of mates at school, and it was when our church was getting negative press. At that time, one of his best mates' dad had just died tragically and very suddenly while undergoing an operation. And all his friends were in the playground with the boy at school, hanging out, talking about it and how sad it was. And one boy said to my son, "Yeah, I wish it was your dad who died. Then we wouldn't have Hillsong." My son was shocked by this, especially when he was trying to comfort his grieving best mate. Some of his friends defended him, but my son was devastated by what had been said. And when he heard this and came home, he was angry and he was upset. We had to make an official complaint to the school, and we had to have a lot of ongoing chats with my son about our church, the media, and people's perceptions. And this was a very real and confronting time of pain for my 12-year-old son. Journalists and parliamentarians alike have a duty of care, and I ask you to consider this deeply. I ask you, Mr. Wilkie, to consider your obligations as a parent, as someone who desires to uphold what is best for society, and as someone who appears to care deeply about important matters that affect the welfare of the people of this nation. Today we draw a line in the sand. I've said before, we're not a perfect church. There is no such thing. But if you find one, don't invite me, because as soon as I show up, it's no longer perfect. We are simply a church which is trying to do our best to be a positive contributor to the communities we are in. We genuinely desire to add value. We believe God loves all people, and so do we. Jesus came to serve, not to be served, and this is our posture. I love our church. I'm not talking about the buildings or the songs or being known or notoriety. I'm talking about the people. I love the people of our church. I feel your pain, your genuine questions, your desire to trust, the resilience required to keep coming when it feels like one thing after another. And I want to thank you for showing up and smiling and serving faithfully and loving Jesus and continuing to pray for our nation of Australia and the nations all around the world. As a church, we will get through this. And ultimately, we'll be a better version of ourselves. We'll not shy away from continuing to ask the hard questions and make appropriate changes where necessary. And let me give you a clear understanding of what we've already done. 5 things on the screen. Number 1, a Grant Thornton forensic investigation that began in August 22. The outcomes will be shared with our church at the appropriate time, and we'll take on board the recommendations. Number 2, Hillsong staff voluntary resignation program, which began in September, that reduced our staff numbers and has given us significant annual saving. A new gifts and honorarium policy implemented in October last year. New structure and change in culture that is focused on effective mission-focused endeavors. And launching a third-party evaluation of financial structure and processes to ensure they are mission-focused. If mistakes were made, we will be upfront about them. We will not shy away from them. We will own them as a church. And I have one final story as we conclude. At the end of last year, I was in our city campus at Waterloo, and we were packing Christmas hampers with a great bunch of volunteers and team. And I started chatting to the woman serving alongside me. She told me she was from Iran. She told me it's terrible for a woman in her country. They have very little rights at all. And she'd made her way to Australia to study. And when she got here, rather than being excited, she felt alone. She felt vulnerable. She didn't feel like she fitted in. She was not a Christian, but had grown up with a different religious faith. And in her moment of emotional pain and loneliness, someone invited her to church. And she came. And she told me from that moment, everything changed. She learned about Jesus. She gained friendships and community. She no longer feels alone and vulnerable. She's now a Christian, a follower of Jesus. She's found a spiritual home at our church, and she is loved and supported, and now she loves and supports others. She is confident about her future and is now working and contributing into her adopted country. And that's why we are here. That's our story. And that will continue to be our story. I want to show you an image of an olive tree. It doesn't look like an olive tree right now, as you're going to see on the screen. But it was a gift given to me by Cass and Rich Langton that unfortunately spent too much time in my office instead of where it should be, outside in nutrient-rich soil getting plenty of sunshine. Guys, right now it's battered a bit. It looks like a stick. It was in the wrong place and its health was affected. But I got our guys from our maintenance team on Friday, earlier this week, and I said, guys, we've got to resurrect this. And so they found the right place for it. It's kind of near the dock area, and you can walk past it and pray over it when you see it. And we're believing its health, by being in the right place, is going to be affected in a positive way. I look forward to seeing it grow and flourish over the coming years. And I feel the same about our church. We might feel a little battered and bruised right now, but I look forward to seeing our church grow and flourish and get healthier and stronger over the years to come. In Psalm 52 and verse 8, and the worship team can come and join me, it says this in the New Living Translation: "But I am like an olive tree, thriving in the house of God. I will always trust in God's unfailing love. I will praise you forever, O God, for what you have done. I will trust in your good name in the presence of your faithful people." And as Stephen quoted at the end of his statement from the Message in Jeremiah 33, verse 6-9, "But now take another look. I'm going to give this city a thorough renovation, working a true healing inside out. I'm going to show them life whole, life brimming with blessing. I'll restore everything that was lost to Judah and Jerusalem. I'll build everything back as good as new. I'll scrub them clean from the dirt they've done against me. I'll forgive everything they've done, forgive all their rebellions, and Jerusalem will be a center of joy and praise and glory for all the countries of the earth. They'll get reports of all the good I'm doing for her. They'll be in awe of the blessings I pour on her." I pray that's our story, church. I pray that's our story. I haven't shared around our giving today, but I want you to know that our family will be making a significant contribution to our church this week. And maybe we'll be the only one, but we'll keep the lights on for at least a week or so. And just like I said last March, Lucinda and I plan on returning each Sunday and doing whatever is required to serve and build a healthy church, changing lives through Christ. We said it last March, and we're still here saying it again this March. And if there is a march next year, we'll be here saying it again then. God bless you. Can we stand together?